Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sanjeev Mota from B&K Securities. Welcome all of you to this fireside chat that we have. It's a very interesting company called Blue Smart Electric Mobility. It's a great way to play the whole electric mobility sector. We want to learn a lot today on this whole sector. It's quite new to us for people in the secondary market, especially. So, Mr. Jaggi, Anmol Jaggi, who's the co-founder of Blue Smart Electric, is with us. Thank you very much, sir, for spending time.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and we also have Annamalai Jairaj. He heads our auto sector. So, between me and Mr. Jairaj, we'll ask you a few questions, and if any participant has any questions, they'll put it on the chat and we'll ask.
Sure.
So that's what we'll have. Great. So maybe I can just start, Mr. Jaggi. You've had a reasonably long, early start on this whole renewable space, right? You have this another company, Gensol, I think, and
right,
which you started, and then you started this as well. Maybe you can talk to us about your getting into renewable and like what are you thinking? How are you seeing things?
A great question, sir. So so it all started in 2007. I graduated in 2007, and coincidentally, I graduated as a petroleum engineer. So I was absolutely in the opposite space of what I've been doing over the last 14 years. But when I graduated as a petroleum engineer, I think if in stock market terms, I can use that we shorted oil and long renewables at that time. And perhaps for me in life, it's been a good trade to long renewables in 2007 and short oil. I think oil was 110 at that time when we all graduated. So it was, but basically, while still at college, I was a big believer in the physics behind renewable energy, and now the physics behind electric mobility, which basically says that the cost of silicon would half every year when the production capacity doubles. So that's basically Moore's law, and I trusted the Moore's law a lot, and I said that if the price is going to half by every year, then it's a great place to be, and this is surely going to be the future. So in 2007, we used to see plants at about 24 crores a megawatt, solar power plants, to now at about 1/10 the price, almost at about close to 3 crores a megawatt or 3.5 crores a megawatt. So it's been, I think that we trusted Moore's law. Now, of course, Moore's law only applies to electronics. It doesn't apply to lithium ion, but we are seeing the similar characteristics of Moore's law also getting applied to lithium, which is that as the production capacity is doubling, the prices are halving. And we have seen it over in batteries also. In 2010, the price of the battery was $1,000 a kilowatt hour, to now it is down to about $125 a kilowatt hour. So it's happening here. It's happening in the electric mobility space. So it's pure physics, which is actually given the direction that we should be in this sector. And having tasted clean and green energy once in the form of renewable energy, I think we are very happy. Then it's very difficult to change your sector, change your line. You always look at the adjacencies in that particular domain, and the adjacency for us from a renewable energy perspective was electric mobility. So we said, why not get into that? And personally, for me, I've always thought that the services industry is slightly easier than manufacturing, maybe perhaps in our country or otherwise. Maybe our mind was attuned to doing services business, so we always did services business rather than manufacturing business. So that's been kind of our start.
Sure, sir. Great. So in moving to Blue Smart, which is I think you started in 2019, and what are you trying to solve over there? What is the problem that you're solving, and what is the business? Maybe talk a bit about Blue Smart's business, but mainly why did you start and what are you trying to solve with?
So at Blue, we have two lines of business. Our first line of business is we are an all-electric ride-hail business. What typically people know as ride-hail is Ola and Uber. So a lot of people know about Ola and Uber. That is ride-hail industry. And the second business that we have is we do EV charging stations. We've set up EV charging stations for our own captive use because we operate a large fleet, and also for third party usage. So these are the two lines of business that we have. Now, why did we start Blue in 2019? The rationale is that again we believe that lithium's price will halve, and it will become the cheapest form, like how solar became the cheapest form of electrons. Lithium will become the cheapest form of mobility, or electric vehicles will become the cheapest form of mobility. You don't want to enter a market where when everybody's crowding in. You want to be at least 1 or 2 years in advance, build out your prototypes, do your experiments, run your because if there is too much of crowding, then it becomes difficult to raise funding, and then it becomes a me too kind of a business. Whereas if you want to clearly stand out, then you people are, I think the EV, if I can use, the EV boom has not even started as yet. It started to come on people's mind. It has started to come in people's language, but we are nowhere close to a EV boom. And whenever it happens in 2022 or 2023, we will see that who are the people, who are investors going to back, and it's going to be companies which have demonstrated prototypes, demonstrated some scale, and investors are going to back that. So with that thought, we thought that if EV is the future, then we want to invest and we want to be ahead of the curve in learning and in scaling by about 2-3 years. So that's why we started in 2019. And the problems that we were trying to solve were both on the EV charging side and on the ride-hailing side. Typically, in the ride-hail business, we saw so fundamentally we wanted to be in electric because that is going to be the future. But while we were concentrating on that, there could have been many businesses. We could do manufacturing, you could do a ride hail, you could do some maintenance work, you could do multiple work. We decided on ride hail, considering the situation that our competition had. Now, what we saw on our competition was the focal point of every ride hail business is actually the driver partner. And we saw that the driver partners were very frustrated and were kind of unhappy with the competition, and hence competition was not seeing any new supply of cars which was coming in. There was a lot of new supply of cars in 2015, 2016, 2017, when the driver incentive was 80,000 rupees a month, 1 lakh rupees a month. But as soon as the driver incentives came down to something more realistic, like 20,000, 25,000 a month, there was no new supply which was coming. So we could see that while the Indian consumer wanted to go more towards ride hail, but the competition was not being able to add cars, and that's why we were seeing a huge amount of problems around surge pricing. We were seeing a huge amount of problems around cancellations. So that gave us the opportunity to say that we want to do electric. In electric, ride hail looks like a great market because competition is becoming weaker by the day, and hence there will be an opportunity for new players to step in this market. And the other thing being that competition has not become profitable even till date. After spending billions and billions of dollars in burn money, which is for both the competitors that we have, which is Ola and Uber, they are still not turned profitable. And if you understand why they have not turned profitable, it is when you use a fuel which is 6 rupees, 7 rupees a kilometer, at least, if today to diesel has touched 110 rupees, and if your average car average is like 15, you are basically paying 8-9 rupees a kilometer as fuel, and you're charging 15-16 rupees to the customer. There is no way you can make money in this business. At electric, our fuel cost is 1 rupee a kilometer. Now, 1 rupee a kilometer as fuel and 15 rupees to the customer, that makes business sense. So we thought that it makes consumer sense, because consumers want no cancellations, consumer want no surge pricing, consumers want more availability of cars, and on the economic side, the balance sheet side, this is a business which can become profitable and have much higher capital efficiency than what our competition had. So electric will become the flavor of the world in 2-3 years from now. Consumers are in requirement of this service. From our own balance sheet perspective, it looks very good. So these were the three most important factors where we thought that let's get into this business. Of course, we have to realize that our competition is very, very huge. They have raised billions of dollars in capital, but I have always believed that capital is not the moat, cannot be the only moat that will protect you. It can protect you to some level, but it cannot be the only moat that will protect you. If you are agile, if you are working with new age technology, which is electric in our case, you can disrupt even the very large incumbents. So with this thought, we started BlueSmart.
Sure. So I'll come back to the ride-hail part of it because that's very, very interesting and talk. But let's talk a bit about the charging station business of yours. I just wanted to understand the economics of it, and also the fact that recently there was some news about you tying up with GeoBP as well on that. So can you tell us a bit about the charging station business? How so is that a profitable business, or are you looking at it as a profit center, or that's a support center for a ride-hail business?
I am very happy to inform that actually the ride-hail business and the charging business are in two step-down subsidiaries of the holding company, and our subsidiary company for the charging business is already a PAT positive business. In charging, the single largest factor is how much utilization you are doing for the charging station, and globally. Now there have been multiple SPACs, etc., for EV charging businesses. Largest one being ChargePoint, which is today the market cap is $4.5 billion. If you look at the utilization of ChargePoint chargers, they are between 9 to 12%, which is in US and Europe. Very large ChargePoint EV. They operate thousands of charging stations across Europe and US. $4.5 billion is their current market cap. And their utilization is between 9 to 12%, and they are losing about $100 million every quarter right now. But for Blue, because it dovetails with our ride-hail business, our ride-hail business itself provides a utilization of 27 to 30%. And on top of that, third parties also provide us another 8 to 10% of utilization. With that, our utilizations are north of 35%. At north of 35%, we are a PAT positive company, like I mentioned. So the game is about utilization, and it is about to say that we have to utilization of EV charges will come and will become very profound when there are more and more electric cars. But between the time you set up the station and the electric cars come on the road, it could be 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, maybe 5 years. By that time, how do you have to run a business, and how do you support it? So at least in the case of Blue, because we have a large captive fleet, as of date, we operate 900 cars, all electric cars in Gurgaon and Delhi. So in this space, we are able to have a great utilization for our charging stations, and that's where our charging business is already a profitable business. Regarding the tie-up with GeoBP, as everybody is aware that Reliance has announced very large plans for green energy. It is under that plan that we are collaborating, and it's a capex heavy business, and we all know that the best in any capex heavy business, Reliance has its very strong strengths in terms of its balance sheet, its reach, its ability to raise capital at a very low cost. So that is very, very good. And the other big thing in setting up charging infrastructure is that you need to think big. So it's like, you are doing a geo network, you're laying down millions of kilometers of fiber, saying that one day we will get in the consumers 2-3 years later. So they did a 2 lakh crore kind of a capex on geo. So you have to imagine that it has taken 75 years since independence for the oil and gas companies to set up the oil and gas infrastructure that we are seeing. Between Jio and us, we want to replicate the same in less than 10 years. So what the entire country and large businesses like Hindustan Petroleum, Indian Oil, BPCL, SR, RIL, and many others have built over 75 years, we want to build that over next 10 years. And that requires massive amount of capital, that requires massive amount of project experience, massive amount of real estate, massive amount of power. So you have to imagine that like how there are thousands of petrol pumps, but you have refineries, only let's say 15 odd refineries in the country which feed so much of petroleum stock into these fuel retailing pumps. Similarly, for our charging stations, you will set up this entire infra. You will need so much of power to fuel this. So there is a back-end element to that also, which will be large power plants, perhaps only renewable energy power plants, which will be the feeding stock for our charging stations.
Right.
So that's how that collaboration with ABB.
Right. So if you look at the charging station, I guess you talked about that you've reached about 35% utilization. But from what I understand, there's an inverted U, right? Which is that beyond 50, 60%, it actually becomes a challenge because you'll have a lot of queues of cars, right? And then the land is the issue also, right? So how does that work? So how do you kind of make sure that that's the optimum and that's how you want to kind of keep it? Yeah.
So from our perspective, there are, like, let's say there are two types of consumers. One type of consumer is a consumer which is a retail consumer like you and me, and the other is a consumer like BlueSmart, which is a commercial consumer. Now, for commercial consumer, the peak hours of charging are mobility has two peaks. One is the morning office time and the evening office time. There are two peaks of the mobility business. The off peak of the mobility business is the peak of the charging business. So when about 10:30, 11 o'clock, the peak demand, if the morning goes down, that's where we have to push in a lot of our cars for charging, because they need to be ready before the evening peak starts at about 4:30. Now, we hit actually almost 100% utilization in let's say the 12 to 4 p.m. kind of a window. We hit a very high utilization. But if I look at rest of the time, the chargers are pretty much empty. Only some of the retail demand that we get for the chargers that comes in. So we do not have 12 to 4. We are 100%. Sometime in the evening, we are at about 10ish to 12 in the midnight. We are again at about 100%. And then it's like a slow taper or a very low utilization which comes in. So there are a lot of hours which are free. We have all the time from, let's say, 7 a.m. to almost 12. Then after 4 p.m. to 9, 10 p.m., we are almost free. So that is the time that needs to be used for retail charging, and for commercial users like BlueSmart, it's the 12 to 4 and the 9 to 12 p.m., which is the most important hours. So we'll have to create demand in the off-peak hours of commercial usage, which is, like I mentioned, 8 a.m. to 12 noon, and which are good hours. Retail is very active in these hours, or 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., 10 p.m. The retail is very active in those hours. Malls are active, office spaces are active. So you pretty much, the two are to dovetail into each other and not infringe on each other's time.
Okay. So if I look at so currently, I think from what I understand, you have fast chargers in these charging stations, slow and fast chargers. What you don't have is those super fast, like a Tesla type of chargers. Or today, I think even I read somewhere that ABB is launching a charger where in 3 minutes they'll do 100 kilometers. So if something like that, so is that so if the fast, like super fast chargers come, then these become more viable.
So the idea is, sir, that it all depends on the speed of current at which the battery can take it.
Right.
Now, it is a function of what technically we will call what is an onboard charger inside a car.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in a 10 lakh rupee car, for example, the Tata Tigor, which is the workhorse of BlueSmart, out of 900, I think we have 730 Tata Tigor cars, Tata Tigor EV cars. Mm-hmm. At a 10 lakh cost point, it is difficult to have an onboard charger which can absorb 50 kilowatt of power, 70 kilowatt of power, because these are very costly onboard chargers. Mm-hmm. Which can come in a Tesla, which costs you 50 lakh, 60 lakh. It can come in a Mercedes EQS, it can come in a BMW i6, or it can come in those cars. Workhorse of where the mobility, some of us will have those fancy electric cars, which is Teslas and the BMWs and the EQCs, etc. But if you look at what will be the 95% population of these cars by volume, by value, maybe the Teslas and the BMW score, but by volume, 95% of the cars are going to be in India sub 10 lakh cars, which is all we know. All automobile is not new to the country. And all these luxury players have been there for a long time, but 98% of all cars in the country are sub 10 lakh cars. Though it will be very difficult for sub 10 lakh cars to have onboard chargers which can absorb this very high power, because there is electronics which is involved. You will need that high quality of electronics which can absorb 50 kilowatt in a minute or 4 minutes. So that the cost of the onboard charger will be more than the cost of the car.
Right.
So, but technology will improve. I am not saying that it will not happen. The technology will improve. Maybe the onboard chargers will also start to cost lower. But in the current circumstance, it looks like if the sub 10 lakh car has to be successful, and you need to keep the price point around there, you cannot have onboard chargers which can absorb power in 4 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes. It will be more like 1 hour, 175 minutes for the 10 lakh rupee car.
Right. Sure. So if I look at the challenge then, is that, given that the speed is always going to be an issue, as you said, because of the onboard charger, ability for a EV charging station to service number of cars is going to be limited, I think, in that sense, unless, and of course, if you're looking at cities, the land cost is also pretty huge. So land, from what I understand, the two big challenges for a EV charging station are your land availability and the load factor that it can take, right?
You have hit the nail on the head. These are the only two big challenges that all of us face in the EV charging business.
Right. And so, what would be a capex cost, for example, of doing let's say a standard, and again, a standard, when I mean, I don't know how you define standard, what it can take is maybe 20-25 cars at a given point of time, or so
at Blue, what we believe is that the charging station business is also a real estate grab business.
Right.
And the first mover will clearly have a head start over any competition coming in. You could have capital or any other thing, but real estate is absolutely finite, and real estate in areas where you want to be is very, very scarce. You don't want to set up charging stations at Panvel. You want to set them up in BKC, where public will be. Panvel also has a lot of public, but where does all of Bombay come to work? There are 3, 4, 5 places in Bombay, or for Delhi it is the Cyber City or the Connaught Place or some of those markets which are there. And in these areas, it is going to be extremely scarce to get real estate to set it up. So charging business for sure is a real estate, very, very important real estate business, wherein we are trying to partner with Brookfields of the world and large asset owners, the DLFs of the world, to say how can we be your long-term charging infrastructure partner, and because your tenants are also going to start asking for that, and I'm very happy to say that a lot of buildings have started to set this up.
Yeah.
So at Blue, we believe that the minimum functional size at which we should start off is something like at least 30 to 40 chargers at one location, because in India the concept of unmanned chargers is very difficult. In India, we have not been able to even get unmanned fuel stations. Across the globe, it is unmanned fuel stations. Right. But in India, it is still manned fuel stations. Now, when I have to include the cost of manned charging stations at a scale of less than 30-40 chargers at one location, it does not make economic sense if I have to distribute the cost of manning the charging stations. So that is the ideal size that we believe. At Blue, we have thought that we will be slightly ahead of the curve, and we actually pick up land pieces which can accommodate up to 100 chargers,
Right.
because the population of cars inside the Blue network, which is our own ride hail business, and third party will constantly increase. And because this is going to be a real estate business, you need access to real estate. So securing real estate ahead of time is much useful and is going to be a permanent competitive advantage that one can have. So with this, we set up 30 to 40 guns, but we book real estate for 100 guns.
Right. Oh, and you would be like investing, or these are lease models, as you said, like you may be doing as a lease back from someone like a Brookfield, or how what's the thought process there?
As of now, under the partnership that we have with GOBP, the joint venture does the capex.
Okay. Okay. But so joint venture is doing the capex, and that's a joint venture. This is a joint venture with your
It's
charging.
a GOBP. It's a GOBP Blue Smart.
Okay, fair enough. And okay, I think that's anything else on the charging station that So one of the
No, I'll just maybe take 1 minute
point, if you can. So some of the competitors in this business, let's say Tata Power or some, they're even talking about tying up with existing gas stations to provide it. Is that a model that will work, or the gas stations are too small? The current gas stations are too small.
Gas stations are interesting, but gas stations, like you have mentioned, is too small. Hardly, if the gas station is active, maybe you cannot park a car for 90 minutes or 75 minutes over there.
Yeah.
So it is it's slightly difficult. Plus, I think we will also have to look at the safety aspect of doing it. Now, most of us don't follow, but if you look at what the fuel station says, you should not even operate a mobile phone there. So such low intensity electronic signals, if they are a safety hazard, then operating a complete electric charging station over there, I think, will be more hazardous than just operating mobile phones. So we have to also explore, and more research needs to go into the safety aspect of operating EV charging stations and fuel pumps in conjunction. I think that safety needs to be researched more. We don't want incidents, and it's a fuel station is like a bomb. Right. So you don't want any health hazards to crop in. So that's what I would want to say. Plus, I don't think really in a city area you can actually park 1 or 2 cars for 90 minutes over there. It's a hectic place. Yeah. Maybe in the night time, but definitely not during the daytime.
Right. So from a profitability perspective, you are saying you're already PAT positive, but that's if you include your the capex cost in this. So how does it work? Is it because the capex should be the main cost, it should be capex, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to take maybe 1 minute over that, and I wanted to explain the unit economics. Am I audible, sir?
Yes,
my screen.
You are.
Yeah, so I just wanted to explain the unit economics for about 2-3 minutes. So the unit economics on EV charging stations is, let's say, 3 most important costs: cost of electricity, cost of real estate, and the depreciation of the chargers.
Yeah.
So 3 most important costs. Then, of course, the cost of manning, cost of maintenance, etc., which is there. But 3 biggest costs. So cost of electricity, we all know is there. It is pretty much, but of late, a lot of governments have given in a lot of incentives towards EV, and you actually, I'll just take maybe a half a minute deviation. If crude actually touches $100, imagine the amount of the government will step in with subsidy, etc., and what it does to the balance sheet of the government is known to everybody. Whereas if you do electric, you save on that fuel bill. So I expect, as the crude prices tend up, I expect even more incentives to get announced for the EV business, because for like today at Blue level we save 10,000 liters of fuel every day. It's a very small number, but whatever we do, but if more incentives are provided to us, we can. Anyways, the government is going to subsidize and it hit $100, the government will start subsidizing the fuel bill. It is much economical to subsidize EV, which is a permanent source of no subsidy, than to subsidize fuel bill for 3 months, 6 months, etc. And the fuel bill goes in lakhs of crores of rupees. It's not a small amount. So in our opinion, as a side deviation, I was mentioning that we expect even more incentives to come in for electric mobility. Coming to unit economics, in the city where we operate in Delhi, the cost of electricity for EV is 4.5 rupees a kilowatt hour, and the efficiency of the car is 7.5 kilometers a kilowatt hour. So how you will say 15 kilometers per liter, etc. For us, it is at about 7.5 kilometers per kilowatt hour. This is, I'm saying, for the Tata Tigor EV car, which is, I mentioned, is the workhorse for us. Which means that the fuel cost per kilometer, just the electricity cost, 4.5 divided by 7.5 is about close to 60 odd paisa per kilometer. That's the pure fuel cost, the electricity. Let's come to the real estate cost. The real estate cost for us is averagely at about 3,000 rupees per gun, per charger per month, averagely. There are sometimes some prime areas we are also paying 4.5, some not so prime areas we are paying 2,000 also, but averagely it's about 3,000 rupees per charger per month for us, and which I'm not going into the too much maths of it. Sure. But it works out to be about 20 paisa per kilometer for us on the charger, on the real estate, 3,000 rupees per charger, and based on the fuel dispensing that we are able to do, etc., etc., there's a maths behind it, but it translates to about 20 paisa per kilometer. And then the third cost is the depreciation of the charger, and where we assume that the life of the charger is about 5 years, which is also the warranty period that we get from the suppliers, and assume that beyond the warranty period it will not survive, and we will have to change it. The charger cost today is about 1,60,000 to 2 lakh rupees per charger. So again, if I divide it over 60 odd months, it is again coming to the 3,000 rupees per month kind of a cost, which is again adds up to 20 paisa per kilometer. So 60 paisa for the electricity, 20 paisa for the real estate cost, and 20 paisa for the charger depreciation makes it about 1 rupee a kilometer as fuel cost. Add on top of it some manning cost, some maintenance cost, etc., etc. In no circumstance do we cross 1 rupee 25 paisa per kilometer. So that's the base. In Maharashtra, the incentive is that the electricity is at 6 rupees instead of 4.5 rupees. So your 60 paisa becomes like 80 paisa. So in Maharashtra, you will touch 1 rupee 50 paisa a kilometer vis-a-vis 1 rupee 25 in Delhi. So based on some of these matters, the fuel cost will range between 1 rupee 20 to 1 rupee 60, 70. That's the range of the fuel price cost. And I think you were wanting to ask that, is when you factor in profitability, are you taking in depreciation, etc.? So we are factoring in depreciation. We are not just positive from a P&L perspective. We are also positive from a cash flow perspective.
Okay, great. I think that's great. So moving on to the other side of the business, which is the ride-hailing business. Just one point, I read on your website that you guys have done 10 million kilometers now. So just the fact that you've done so much, the kind of database that you have on EV, probably not many people have in India, at least, of the experience. So what has the experience been like? What are the key learnings that you've seen? Maybe just a few points would be very interesting.
So we have been very positively surprised, actually, when we started the Blue Smart about 2 years, and the first cars that we got in, first we started with 70 cars first. We are 900 today. When we started with the 70 cars in July of 2019, we were very skeptical ourselves. And if somebody would have asked me, Anmol, what is the biggest risk that you see in the business? I would have said that the biggest risk is the technology risk on EV. That will this survive? What will happen after 50,000 kilometers? What will happen after 1 lakh kilometers? So will the battery survive? Will the car run? Will we face any other issue? So we are very happy to report to you that actually we have now, that number is slightly outdated. We have done now 19 million kilometers. So we'll actually update the website also. But at 19 million kilometers, and the oldest car that we got has now done about close to 1,40,000 kilometers. And at 1,40,000 kilometers, that car, that those 70 cars have averagely done, we are seeing no issue around battery. We are seeing no issue around replacement. We are seeing no issue around serviceability of the car. So I think the bet on technology has pretty much been proven right. And it's actually nothing to do with BlueSmart. It is actually to do with Mahindra and Tata, who have manufactured those cars, and actually their cars have been able to deliver on the promise which was given to us. So we are seeing that if the cars are maintained well, if the cars are charged well, we are able to retain the characteristic of the battery, and with that we are able to achieve the range which was promised, and we are able to still deliver after 1,40,000 kilometers also the same service level that we were delivering when the car was brand new. So that's been a big learning for us, and that technology risk has proven right. I think if that risk would have proven wrong, maybe there was no BlueSmart now. If the cars would have started to falter after 50 or 1,000 kilometers, because if the car costs 10 lakh, you cannot amortize the car over 50,000 kilometers. Your cost of depreciation will be 20 rupees a kilometer. You want your cost of depreciation to be 2 rupees, 3 rupees a kilometer, which means that the car will have to do 2 lakh, 2.5 lakh kilometers at least. So at least I can say from our experience that at 1,40,000 we are doing good. How far it will continue to do good at 2 lakh or 2,25,000, we don't have data on that as of now. But till 1,40,000 we are not seeing any issues. And going slightly on the technical, the battery that we had in 2019 July to the battery that we are getting in October of 21, the battery technology is also improved. So I impact that if those cars, let's say, run 2 lakh or 2,25,000 or whatever they run, the cars that we are getting now will run even further better than what our July 19 cars are running.
Right. And okay, so I think that's quite interesting. But have you seen any battery issues, failure in any one of, like you've got 700 cars, but are you seeing some issues on battery at all? Or because generally you get an 8-year warranty, right, on these batteries?
So the 8-year warranty is for those expensive cars.
Okay.
For the 10 lakh car, it's 3 years.
3 years. Okay.
So no, we have we seen? It's not that we have not faced any issues. We do face issues, but I think everybody was learning. It's very, very important on the quality of charging. The quality of charging is extremely important to give you a high battery life. I think some of us, all of us have debated how you charge your mobile phones. Do you do full charge? Do you keep it always on charge? It's how it impacts the battery life, or how you do it with your laptops, etc. It's the same. Lithium. Our laptops also have lithium-ion battery, and our mobile phones also have lithium-ion battery. It's just that our cars have much higher volume of lithium ion in them, but it's pretty much the same. So how you charge your cars or how you discharge your cars is a very, very important factor of how the battery life will perform. And I think at Blue now we have been able to master the art of charging and discharging, and it is still not perfect, but we will do much better than what anybody else will do. And in fact, so that's the reason our failure rates in the beginning, our failure rates were about 9% of our cars were going under issues every month.
Right.
Now that has dropped to about 3.5%.
Okay. So, is that right? That 30 to 80% is the right charging, that is the, right level of charging, beyond which you should not, either you shouldn't go much below that or much higher than that?
Sorry, I couldn't get that question,
when you charge a car, it should be between 30 and 80% is when.
No, I would say. So it's sir, the idea is, sir, that for example, every battery is composed of cells.
Right.
The aim is to see that every cell should be uniformly charged. Now, in a layman, we can say it should be 30% or 80%, but technically speaking, we always look at, are the cells uniformly charged? Now, where does failure happen? I can draw the analogy to our mobiles and laptops the same. It's not that the full battery fails. It is one cell in that battery which actually fails. Because of that one cell failing, the whole full battery kind of fails. So when you see, maybe, in the older laptop, we've seen that, suddenly the power off happens, it is showing 20% battery and suddenly it goes to 0. That is because one of the cells is not properly
Right.
charged. And batteries operate at a level that batteries will operate at the lowest common denominator.
Right.
They do not operate at the highest. So if there are 36 cells, the battery performance is the lowest of the 36
Right.
cells. So all the other cells will be great, but if one cell is bad, your new battery is also pretty much useless. So we look at all of this in very great detail, and we have built and we have bought technology where we analyze not the battery health in terms of cells and how the cells are getting charged.
Right.
And especially when you fast charge, it is you're throwing a lot of water, and some vessels will get more water and some vessels will get less water. But in a slow charge, when the water is flowing, when you are slow charging the cars, it is like water is coming in slowly and all the vessels will be uniformly filled up. So drawing that analogy, it is very important to also slow charge the cars and do what we call in technical terms cell balancing.
Right.
If you are doing your cell balancing actively, you will be able to ensure that the longevity of the battery is there.
Right. And last point on this, your experience on these cars, when the company says that they can do 180 kilometers with one charge, what do you actually see? Do they actually do only 150 or they actually do 180?
Like I mentioned, sir, our experience has been 7.5 out of the 20 million, 19 million kilometers that we have done. Our experience has been 7.5 kilometers per kilowatt hour. This is for the Tata Tigor, Mahindra Verito car.
Right.
For the larger cars, because their weight is higher, etc., it will drop to, for example, let's say a Jaguar I-Pace. A Jaguar I-Pace will do close to 6 because it's also heavier by about 400-500 kgs. The car is heavier by 400-500 kgs. So for a car of the weight of a Tata Tigor, Mahindra Verito, we get an average of 7.5 kilometers per kilowatt hour.
Right.
The latest cars that we have a 22.5 kilowatt hour battery. So 7.5 multiplied by 22.5 is 170, 180 in that range. So we get that on ground, although maybe in the marketing they say that the car will do 210 kilometers, etc. But in reality, we know that the car is not delivering more than 7.5 in the summers, because the battery performance goes down with higher temperature. It actually drops to 6.75. In the winter, it actually goes slightly higher to 8ish. Not extreme winters like 4 degree, 5 degree centigrade. The battery technology is ideal at 25 degrees centigrade. So now in November, December, the weather that we will have in Delhi, or the weather of February, March, not the January weather where it's 4 degrees, 5 degrees. That time again, it will start to drop. But more we are closer to 25 degrees, we start to see 8.5 kilometers per kilowatt hour. More we are away from 25 degrees, either on the higher or on the lower side, we get about 6ish. But the year-round average is 7.5.
Right. One question on the cars itself. Initial 70 cars or whatever you did, it was all Mahindra Tigor, and then now you've done mostly Tatas. What is your experience between the two?
We love both the vendors, and we are very happy to collaborate with both of them. It is just that Mahindra, for some reason, slowed down their pace of EV. I think they should have been why did they stop? And it is still baffles me. And I would definitely want to ask Anish sir the question of why they have gone slow on EV. But I think it is only because of a lack of cars from their side is why we are not buying more Mahindra cars. We would love to buy. In fact, we would love the competition to come in, because it is pretty much today only Tata EV market. There are other MGZS, etc., but they are not in the segment of cars that we want to operate. So from our side, we would want Mahindra coming into the fray and developing great cars and actually supplying great cars in the sub 10 lakh segment. Otherwise, it's a market which is open for Tata Motors, and Tata Motors is doing a pretty good job there.
Right. Okay, coming to your ride-hailing business, the fact that one is I wanted to understand the economics of it, but more than that, with these EV charging stations that you are doing, aren't you also helping your competition to get into this area? So, what's stopping Ola from coming in now and doing more? And they don't have to do all EV, but they can also have a pretty large EV or Uber to come in.
So electric, let me confirm this, that being all electric is not a permanent competitive moat.
Yeah.
It is a moat which is there for the short term. It will be a moat which will go away with time. If we believe that in 10 years, most of the world is going to be all electric, we cannot actually say by competition. So it is not a moat on which the business is built. The business is built around customers and the pain points of the customer. And the pain point of the customer is around surge pricing. The pain point of the customer is around cancellations. The pain point is around dirty cars. And all of us have been consumers of both Ola and Uber. And more often than not, we have realized all the three problems of surge pricing, cancellation, dirty drivers, dirty cars that has happened. Now, it is not going to be that because Ola turned all electric, the driver partner will stop canceling, or there will be no surge. So some of the reasons, and actually speaking, leaving about a 10% population in the educated masses of Delhi, Gurgaon, 90% of the consumers actually don't really bother about what is the fuel inside, whether it was diesel or electric or CNG or whatever. So they don't really bother. What they really bother about is, did the car come to me in time? Was the car clean? What was the pricing of the car? I think that is 90% of the people, that is. And even if there are some diehard environmentalists out there, if my car is dirty and if my car is late by 30 minutes, they will use me one or two times and then they will stop using Blue Smart.
Right.
So the moat is around customer service. The moat is not around electric. And you can see our App Store ratings on iOS.
Yeah.
We are a 4.9 star rated app. On Android, we are a 4.8 star rated app. So very high degree of customer service that we have been able to operate. And that is the key moat. That is what will keep the consumers with us. Now, can Ola and Uber fix their problems and give great customer service? I think it'll be we look forward. I think the industry as a whole should benefit, and if consumers, I think it will be more beneficial than everybody. If there is no cancellation, no surge, and every time you get a great car, there is no reason for anybody to then own a car. You should only be using ride hail. So that's the market which will start to happen. And I hope that the two competitors are also able to fix their problems.
Right. And in terms of economics, how is this business? Currently where it is. You said Uber, Ola both make losses. What about you? And how scalable is this business to other cities?
Oh, so sir, from a scalability perspective, I can share with you, sir, that today, prior to COVID, there were 5 lakh cars on the ride-hailing platforms. 5 lakh cars do about 2,000 rupees of business every day. So you can do the maths. It's two big numbers, but whatever is the revenue, I think 5 lakh into 2,000. I think 5 lakh into 2 is 10 lakh, and then you add 3 zeros is 1 crore, 10 crore, 100 crores. Is 100 crores of revenue a day. Is 100 crores of revenue a day. So is not a small market by any chance. It's a decent, good sized market, and this is just the start of the ride hail, where because of the problems of the competition, people started to scale down their ride hail ambitions, or taking ride hail, because you are always in uncertainty whether the car will come, this, that. If the experience, like what Blue is trying to build, is seamless, that you will not get a cancellation, you will not get surge, you will get clean. If that kind of experience happen, while 500,000 cars, you can actually run 20 lakh cars on the road. And everybody should only be using ride hail, because the economics of owning a car is absolutely flawed. I think there are so many theories around why own a depreciating asset, etc., etc., and why you get that parking space in Bombay. Your parking space is as expensive as a small flat somewhere else. So why do all of that? It is from that perspective, if the service quality levels can come higher, you will see that why 5 lakh cars, it should be actually 20 lakh cars on the road, and the market should be much larger market. Just going by the number we just said, I think 100 crores into 365 is in itself a very large market size, and it is nowhere close to where it should be. It can go at least 4 or 5 times higher than where it is right now.
Right.
So it's like maybe the potential is to be a 2 lakh crore kind of a market.
Right. Sorry, I've taken most of the time. AJ, if you have questions, please go ahead.
Yeah, almost time is running out. So,
Yeah.
or to minor, small questions. Sir, I think we have a leased model, I think. So we don't.
Sorry?
No, we don't own the assets. We have a leased model for for the fleets. I think you have tie up with the ESL and also some of the individual people. So, from what I could understand, I think you do the servicing. Maintenance of the vehicle is done by you. So now when it comes to the battery, what happens? See, obviously now people might not have replaced the battery because it will be in the warranty period. So maybe after 3 years, whatever the guarantee, whenever the battery goes off, the battery cost will be by the whoever is leasing it to you, or you need to replace the battery.
So, sir, if there is anything which goes wrong with the battery, Blue is responsible for it. We have typically the older lease periods that we were getting were for 3 years. Now, because of the scale and size at which we are expanding, and by the virtue that we are the largest purchaser of electric cars in the country, we are able to significantly improve the terms and conditions of our contracts. So what a retail customer will get from a showroom and what Blue will get as the largest purchaser of EV cars in the country, there are very different terms, conditions, service levels that we receive from the OEMs. So now we have much more extended terms. I cannot disclose the terms, but it is much different from what a individual retail customer will get when they buy a car from the showroom.
No, I understood that, but at some point battery has to be replaced, no?
So by that time the car is depreciated. If the car has run 2.5 lakh, 3 lakh kilometers, we are pretty much done with the car. We don't need the car now. If the car has run 2.5 kilometers, my depreciation cost was 4 rupees a kilometer. We pretty much home. I think we don't want to sweat the car more than that.
So now, see, now your operating cost, obviously you said it will be somewhere between 1 to 2 rupees per kilometer. And even if your depreciation, whatever now you talked about, it may be 4 or 5 rupees maximum. Still, what we have read is sometimes our fares are more than the normal if you leave the surge pricing. So why is that actually?
Sir, so see, you make the most money in business if you can charge your consumers the right price. Now, because my input cost is lower does not mean that my output cost should be lower. I have enough demand for our cars. We have enough consumers who want to use the service of Blue. And if they are happy to pay a higher price than competition for it, then it just increases the margins of our business. And I think the best business, even from a stock market perspective, would be business where the input costs are the least, but the output cost is the highest. And that's what we are trying to do at Blue. So we are not in our service levels are much better than competition. So our pricing is also much better than competition. better in the sense slightly higher, and that's where I mentioned that our capital efficiency at Blue is much superior, and although we are a loss-making company ourselves, but the level of loss that we make and the path to profitability that we have, if our competition, after having raised tens of billions of dollars, has still not been able to turn profitable, and Blue with not that capital is at the verge of turning profitable, I think it just says a lot about the pricing power that we have, both on the input side and the output side.
Okay. And now in the last, say, now we should have experience for 2 years. On the maintenance side, what is the maximum maintenance issue we have faced in which component or which part in a EV?
Sir, we do face battery issues. Like I mentioned in the beginning, about 9.5% of our fleet used to go for maintenance every month. But now it's dropped to about 3.5%. So it's improving over time. But the biggest issues are still concerning battery around the cell balancing. So cell balancing is the number one issue that we face.
Other than that, on the BMS side and other mechanical part, there is no major
very
issue.
little failures. Mechanical, to sir, is normal. We've not seen any suspension failures. We've not seen any and some of it is also accident, etc. We do about 2 lakh kilometers a day. And when we do such lakh, even if you drive your own car for 2 lakh kilometers, you will have 1 or 2 scratches, accidents, etc., which will happen. We are doing that on a daily basis. So it is. We definitely feel have some what I will say unwanted damages to the car also, which is more mechanical. But that is the part of the business. You are running a fleet. It will happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And on the Blue Charge, I think, I mean, if somebody has a real estate, I think you work along with them, no? That's what the model, I think, that Blue Charge.
Yes.
So how does that model work actually? If somebody has a land, they can approach you, something like that, is it? And who will share the capital cost after that?
Yes, they need to have land at the right place. We don't need land everywhere. We need land at the right place, and plus they should have a power connection, or there should be a substation which is close by for us to source the power from there. We do not need small power. A typical Blue Smart charging station needs about 1 megawatt of power, which is 1 megawatt of power is something like a hospital will require that power, or a 5-star hotel will require that power. So it is a lot of power that we need. So we do not need like a small 10-20 home connection, which will be able to suffice for our need. So if we do it in a mall, for example, we have 2 large charging stations in 2 malls in Gurgaon and Delhi. The power that is being consumed in the mall and the power which is being consumed in our EV charging station is almost the same. In peak, when between, let's say, 12 to 4, we are drawing that much power from the grid. So it's not just about the availability of real estate, it is also the availability of a very strong power connection and the quality of the power connection. We don't want to run our charging stations on diesel and buy power at 20 rupees a kilowatt hour, and then our fuel cost also becomes 3-4 rupees a kilometer. So the quality of the power and the quantity of power is also very important, as is real estate. But if there is a location which has great location, it's a very good place for setting up the charging stations. It's in areas of high ride density, people come in, go out. It's a place where movement is happening, and there is a good quality and quantity of power that we are having. It's the best. We just go ahead, sign up that location for at least 9 years. So currently we sign 9-year agreements.
And the capex will be done by us.
The capex is done by the GOBP Blue Smart.
Okay.
Before that, whatever we have done, we do it. But now that we have a specific joint venture in place for it, we do that.
And for the real estate owner, there will be some sharing, is it?
No, there is no sharing. We pay them a fixed rent.
Fixed rent, is it? Okay. Sir, due to lack of time, I think you can take it.
So, sir, last question. What is the plan in terms of BPGO, you guys, in terms of where would you be 3-4 years down the line? How many charging stations? What is, and where, or is it all India?
Yeah, so it's an all India thing. We are not just focused on Delhi NCR. The first market where we are doing is Delhi NCR, but very soon you will see us across the country. So that is for sure. and our event, the business plan is about setting up about close to 35,000 charging stations in the next 3 years.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot. And in terms of funding, how are you guys positioned now for both the businesses?
So we raised just recently we raised about 190 crores equity from British Petroleum. So that is only BP. Reliance had no part to play in it. But BP invested 190 crores last Thursday. So it's just been like 1 week of us raising the last round of capital. We've raised about 75 crores before this. In the last 2 years, we've raised 75 crores, and we raised 190 crores in the last week. So total capital that we have raised is 265 crores. I think we will raise another 500 to 1,000 crores in the next about 1 to 1.5 year.
And that's mostly for the charging station business.
Yeah, money goes in charging stations. We are still a loss-making company, so we still have to fund our burn. Although we are very close to our metrics around profits, but we also have to give in Dasra for our cars. Every lender which leases the car also needs deposits in the form of Dasra. You have to keep certain amount of deposit. So which is it's not a P&L expense, but it is a balance sheet item which is there. So we have to do that. So money goes into all of these three, plus a lot of expansion which is planned in the coming years.
Right. So it looks like I guess given the profitability you're talking about, despite raising such little capital, you said you're almost profitable on the ride-hailing side. That looks great, and
yeah. So we are like I mentioned, we are still doing losses,
Right.
but we expect that very soon we should be a profitable company.
That's great, sir. I think we have taken a lot of your time, and but would love to be in touch and talk a bit more about this. Thank
Sure,
you
sir.
so
My
much.
pleasure.
Thank you so much for spending time.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, Annamalai. Thank you, Malika.
Thanks for the time, sir.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sanjeev sir. Thank you.